Break. Of course, now this is towards the end. It's the tail end of the show. We were at the point. My name is Samgituku.
And my name is Nzikipiku. Go ahead.
Yes, we're still with Dr. Chris from Kiminini, Mheshimiwa Gladys Shalif from Uasin Gishu, Gladys Wanga from Homa Bay, and Anthony Lodge from Mathare. We're at the point of now moving forward. There's a proposal by CS Kobia that we should have the counties converted into constituencies, so to have 2 women, 2 men. There's the fear of dissolution of parliament. Is it a real fear that we should actually look at?
Yes, I think, okay, first of all, remember, I think I spoke here and said that there's a plan B. I remember I said I'll support the Duale bill. If it doesn't succeed, I don't agree in principle in the nomination process that is proposed. I prefer an elected positions to be proposed. And the formula that is there, and I said, we will back it. If it doesn't pass, then there's still plan B, which is a Beausoleil bill. And this is what we'll be doing as women. We need to go back to the drawing boards and ask ourselves, what was it that caused this current bill to fail? What was it that was raised by members on what they didn't like about the bill? Then we can see how to do it. But we must keep on. I don't believe that you can win a war like this. And even the war inequality across the world did not happen overnight. If you look at the civil rights movement in the US, it takes many years. So we have to keep trying. I think we should keep up the pressure, and I must say, just to ensure that it's corrected, actually, Honorable Olwach and Dr. Wamalo here are one of the most progressive parliamentarians that I know. I mean, they're usually very supportive on many. They contribute to debate. They're active in parliament. They are not the problem. It's very easy to, because they understand. But there are those who are completely ignorant and who will be very condescending about it and say, why do we need more women for it? When in essence, you look at the person, they just probably came into parliament because their father was so-and-so and they had lots of money. So I think we need to have a conversation where we understand the challenges of where women are coming from. And I think the phrase that women do not elect themselves, I think that is a bit unfair. If I am raised to think that a woman cannot be a leader, even though I'm a woman, I will not elect a woman. So it comes from the way, do you remember when our kids would say, when they see a woman in the hospital, they say that's a nurse. And when they see the male one, even though the male one is a nurse, they say that's the doctor. Yes. You see, it's a bias that has been ingrained in our minds that it becomes difficult. So remember, there is the cultural bias, then there is the economic, socio-economic setup that exists. So there is much more. And because we have recognized that, and that recognition is recognition the world over, that there is that challenge. And therefore, all we need is that we still have a constitutional amendment bill that is sitting in Parliament. We still have to look at the Political Parties Act and see whether it's a guideline. We may have an opportunity during the referendum. I don't think all is lost. But I also don't think that the women should give up on the pressure to dissolve Parliament. Okay. Because that is also an option. But like I said, this is happening in the month of March, when there's going to be the UN conference on the status of women being held in New York.
An
Kenya has a huge,
Women's Day.
Yes, and there's a huge delegation, including the CS leading them, going to New York. And I just told Gladys I'm going to make a big poster of this, and then they don't have to give a report as Kenya.
Are you going?
And no, I'm not attending this year. I attended last year. But this should be the poster of the status of women in Kenya. We don't need to do a country report. Okay, all right. Now, Mheshimiwa Olwach, Chris Omalo, I asked him the question on what the referendum question will be. He didn't tell me. Can I assume that you want the requirement scrapped?
First of all, give me 1 minute.
No, just quickly, just respond on that. So that
now, the issue is this.
Don't lose me my vote, and I already have one.
The issue is this. The women of affirmative should not be allowed to contest for the same seat in the subsequent elections. One guy should go to the constituency, or so that you leave other women to come in. Okay. So as a referendum question, my proposal is the 2/3 issue should only be applicable on matters of appointive position, not elective.
That would mean that we don't require even the county assemblies to be compliant with the rules. So the risk of dissolving parliament, is it time that we pursue it? Would it resolve our crisis, the situation that we have?
Remember, this thing has been to court, I think, more than twice. And the issue of dissolving parliament is always a live issue. The only question is whether the courts would have the mettle. It's a very drastic thing. I don't think it has happened anywhere in the history of Kenya, in Africa. I doubt that they would
so has nullification never happened, and it did happen. So I think we have progressed.
In that respect, we seem to have a law that we cannot effect, I don't think that law can be put into place, dissolving parliament. It is so drastic, I don't think the Chief Justice would do it. I don't think the President would want it done that way.
Okay.
So that brings us to the question, how do we resolve this issue? And I think for me, then it's a referendum thing. I have looked through the Gladys bill. It is possible and plausible that we go through it and consider it. But if the same political lethargy that we see on both sides will obtain, I think it will fall the same fate. Okay. It will be the 5th time we will try, the 5th time we will fail. I think we should negotiate a path to the referendum and talk about whether we want this 2/3 gender rule and to what extent. I seem to buy the idea that we probably go the elective route that is proposed by Wanga, phrase it properly in a referendum question. If we do go that direction, then we don't need to have this 2/3 Article
elective
81.
to mean certain constituencies for women, or what do you mean, elective route?
I think she could probably best explain her.
Yes, yes. My bill in summary is this: that in a county such as Uasin Gishu, instead of having one woman rep position running on 6 constituencies, you divide. You do 2 constituencies. You pair constituencies, and you have. So we'll have 3 women representatives right away, plus 6 MPs, whether they can be male or female. You will immediately achieve the 30% across the country. When it comes to Senate. We then have, instead of having the many nominations to top up to the Senate, you then have 2 senators, 1 male, 1 female, running on a joint ticket.
The downside of that, does that mean that perhaps now our budget will be bigger? Because those are offices, those are employers that will be coming in, those are so many other things.
You see, that is again the challenge that we have in this country. We talk about the narrative without actually looking at the factual figures. I speak to data. The data is very clear. Currently, Parliament takes up 1.5% of the total budget. If we implement this 2/3 rule, the cost will be 0.2. So it means it will come to 1.7. So it is not the cost. If it is a cost issue, then while we are at it, the central government, which takes 62% of the budget, then we should take away 10% of their budget while we're at it. If it's counties, then we should reduce the counties to 25 while we are at it. So it is not a cost issue. You cannot talk it cannot become a cost issue just because it has become women. And remember, cost is not an exacerbating issue at all in this process. What is actually, it is not about the cost. The cost issue was a narrative of how to kill it among Kenyans. And that sells very well because Kenyans are suffering. So it was whoever generated that story of the narrative of cost. But believe me, the figures are published. It is a very minor increment which Kenyans can live with.
Let me rope in Gladys.
In fact, if we save from corruption, we'll have more than enough money to have more money. And the reason why we want to inject more women into parliament is right now, the numbers of women, we cannot even influence. With the numbers we have, we cannot influence legislation. So what we are saying is, in my proposal, in my proposed constitutional amendment bill, is let's have the numbers increased immediately, only for a period of 10 years. What it does is women begin to influence legislation, which means they can influence the ground, which means in 10 years, they're in a better place to compete equally with men.
Let me bring in Gladys Wanga. Your namesake, Gladys Boschele, talked about pressure, adding pressure, and you've been lobbying a lot of your male colleagues as well as women as well. But do you feel a sense of commitment, a genuine commitment from the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, which is chaired, if I remember, by Purity Ngirishi, Women Rep for Kirinyaga? Do you feel a sense of genuine commitment from their end?
Yes. Can I just take, just before Gladys, I apologize.
And you need to wind up.
Yes, but you must remember that, first of all, the reason why the bill was brought to Parliament in the first place is because the court had ordered that the Attorney General must within 40 days bring a bill in Parliament. So it was on court order. And then it came to Parliament and was about to fall. So what the Attorney General was doing was only reacting, it was by force. And even this time, when the matter came up in court, what did they say? There is a bill coming up. That's how the Duale bill came in, again to stave off the legislation. So the goodwill has always been from the pushed by the court.
We want to also hear from Owanga, just on that issue on the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association.
I think is committed. It's always been committed. I think it's a platform through which we drive our lobbying, and our leadership is committed. And I think there's only so much you can do. I mean, in terms of lobbying, so they have lobbied hard, but there are many options, including what has been proposed. But what we're also proposing even under Embrace, which is, you know, broader women leaders, is even 50-50 mixed member proportional representation, which is party lists. This happens in South Africa. This happens in other jurisdictions. You have a list which is zebra, man, woman, and if a party wins so many seats in a county, they take in their people to the National Assembly.
If my numbers
that
were,
way you
will help the situation.
Yeah.
If my numbers were right, in this last one, in this fourth election, about 20 women showed up out of 75 women.
No, there were not 20.
No, there were 70.
There were very, very.
I think they were short by
many more women.
No, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, you're out of time. And thank you so much for your
gentlemen. I've not said anything.
Sorry, allow me not to allow you time because we need to rush to another program. And of course, I just want to read one comment from who is this? This is on gender issue. Colin Fred is saying that on the gender issue, the women representing the 47 counties should have served as a pilot test to convince the society that we need more women in leadership through their actions. But what have they achieved? That is Colin Fred. You don't say where you're texting us from. And then someone else is commenting about the investigations that have been done at the DCI. Lloyd Onyango, when the investigative agencies in the country said that 21 billion shilling was lost, then that is it. DP Root has no mandate whatsoever to claim that a lesser amount, only 7 billion was lost, unless he is involved. Well,
one more tweet says, many have been grilled. There are no impacts shown to Kenyans. Let's at least jail one or two. It's becoming messy.
All right, Dr. Chris Omala from Kiminini, Gladys Boshale from Uasin Gishu, Gladys Wanga from Homa Bay, and Anthony Oluoch from Mathare constituency. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you.
That's all the time for